Hey collectors, Andy Warhol once said, "They always say that time changes things, but you actually have to go and change them yourself." And I kept playing this quote in my mind as I was listening to the new Weezer album, because it has been 32 years since the Blue album, and to be honest, I'm not quite sure Weezer got the message. Ladies and gentlemen, the new Weezer album is finally here. And yes, I say finally, knowing full well that this is a band that is releasing albums probably on average every 18 months to 2 years. So take that with a grain of salt. That's actually one of the things that does fascinate me about this band, because they have been doing this for 32 years. The Blue album, which includes hits like Say It Ain't So, Buddy Holly, The Sweater Song, came out in 1994. And if you look at what else was happening that year in the world of music, it's actually kind of ridiculous. In 1994, you had Green Day putting out Dookie, 9 Inch Nails putting out The Downward Spiral, The Offspring with Smash, Soundgarden with Super Unknown, Jeff Buckley's Grace, Pearl Jam's Vitology, Hole's Live Through This, Oasis with Definitely Maybe, Bad Religion with Stranger Than Fiction, and a whole bunch of other albums that would go on to be decade-defining music. And right in the middle of all of that, you had Weezer coming and putting out the Blue album. Now fast forward 32 years later, and most of those bands have either broken up, have changed dramatically in sound and style, or have, settled comfortably into becoming sort of legacy bands. But Weezer is still putting out new records. So points for that, and 20 studio albums later, here we are with the Gold album. Now, I keep thinking to myself that Weezer is sort of the music equivalent of Pixar. Now, bear with me. When you think about Pixar, Pixar has a formula. Pixar has changed its characters, its stories, its animation styles, and even its audience over the years. But you always know when you're watching a Pixar movie. It has that feel, right? It has those patterns, those comforting consistencies that you just kind of are used to. And Weezer is very similar, right? They can put out albums like Pinkerton or OK Human or Van Weezer, or even the Seasons experiments that they did. And they're clearly different records, but you can almost always tell within about 10 seconds that you're listening to Weezer. And I think that is both their greatest strength and also their greatest limitation. And the Gold album seems to know this. There's a song on here called CEO, right? And it plays directly with the band's history and connects all the way back to the Blue album to Undone, the Sweater Song, which is basically one of the defining songs that set Weezer on the path that they've been on. The Sweater Song, to me, is about loss of control, about when life seems to be unraveling, no matter how hard you try to keep things together. And now CEO, on the other side of the spectrum here, seems to be doing the opposite. That song and this album throughout feels like it's just asking a very simple question, which is, after 32 years, who is actually in control? Is it the band? Is it the record label? Is it us, the fans? And that question becomes, I think more interesting even when you listen to interviews or hear Rivers, the singer-songwriter, talk a little bit about the development of this album. After the prior project to this one, Seasons, became less successful over time, he and the band started asking themselves, what is it that Weezer fans actually want out of Weezer? And he talked about this idea of moving away from this concept of the mad scientist, the experimentation, and moving more towards this idea of the CEO, which is kind of a funny thought because if you're the CEO of Weezer, then what actually is your job? Apparently the answer to that is, how do you give the people the Weezer that they actually want? And so now this is where I'm getting conflicted with the Gold album, because maybe in some regards it is the band taking control of Weezer, and maybe they are trying to say through this album, through the music, through the lyrics, this is what we want this band to be. But to me, it feels more like they just figured out what they think we want and are giving that to us on a gold platter. Now you can't really argue with, this direction, right? Because fans have spent the last 32 years telling this band what they want, right? We complain when they change, and then we complain when they don't change. We ask for another blue album, so they give us a green album. We ask them for a bit of a departure, and so they give us OK Human. But then we listen to that, and then eventually we're like, but where are all the guitars? We want the guitars. So then they give us Van Weezer. So now, when Weezer is actually giving us an album that is openly talking about control, expectations, and the relationship between the band and its audience, I couldn't help but wonder if they're actually trying to break out of that Weezer formula, or whether they're just really, really good at giving us exactly what we want, or at least what we expect, while making it feel self-aware. So that's kind of what I had in mind going into this album. But first, let's open this thing up. All right, so here is the record. And before we open this, I want to talk about the jacket for a second, because there's a little more going on here than just Weezer, but gold. This is technically another self-titled Weezer album, which is why we're calling it the Gold album. But in an interview, Rivers has talked about wanting to move away from the whole color album thing and into metallics, drawing on this idea of metal and dragon lore. Apparently in dragon lore, the bad ones are colored and the good ones are metal, like silvers and golds. So kind of a nerdy thing, but I guess after 32 years of blue, green, red, white, teal, and all of the rest, we're evolving now. We're no longer collecting colors, we're collecting metals. And honestly, I don't know that this is necessarily my favorite cover design of all time, but I do like the idea behind all of these symbols that are on here. Each symbol represents one of the members of the band, which I think is a pretty cool idea. Weezer's often been heavily associated with Rivers, the singer-songwriter of the band, and it's easy to forget that each member is a part of the whole, right? So these symbols are nice little reminders that every member brings something to what Weezer actually sounds like. So we've got our 4 symbols representing our 4 members, and we've got the gold, and we've got the whole dragon lore thing happening. It's a pretty simple design, but I like that there's an actual idea behind it. So now let's see what's actually inside. Okay, here it is out of the plastic. It does have kind of a photo glossy finish to it. Here's the back. Side A tracks, side B tracks. Have this kind of a caveman artwork going on here with our 4 Weezer members represented by the gold on this kind of prehistoric painting background. Kind of goes along with the themes, like we said, of kind of that nerdy lore with the dragon, but also going along with what I said about, they've been here for a long time. Back to basics, back to the origins of Weezer. So kind of a cool tie-in there. Lyrics on the back. Very simple. And then that and nothing else but the record. This is the Amazon Hot Pink variant of the record. So if you order your copy on Amazon, this is the version you'll be getting. Kind of like this idea of the pink against it too. In another interview, they actually mentioned that before they went with the idea of the gold for the album, they were thinking about this album actually being the pink album. So nice little bit of tie-in there as well. All right, so let's go ahead. I'll clean this record and then we'll sleeve it. All right, so I have listened to this album, 4 or 5 times probably since its release, just to kind of get my thoughts together for this video. And honesty time, it's okay. The biggest challenge for me is that the songs, every single one of them, sound very, very much just like Weezer, almost a repeat of what we've already gotten in the past. For me, there isn't quite enough evolution here. And I know that sounds ridiculous to say of a Weezer album, of any band. And this is actually probably what a lot of you are expecting or wanted out of this. So no diss on that. But when the whole concept of the album seems to be wrestling with these ideas of control and expectations, I just sort of was hoping that the music itself would take a little bit more of those risks rather than just the wording of the lyrics, pointing in that direction. The songwriting, honestly, is also incredibly familiar. It has all of those patterns you would expect. Once you kind of dissect the songs, you can't unhear what those patterns are. Every song is intro, chorus, verse, bridge, maybe a guitar solo, and then back to the verse, end song, move to the next one. It makes the album feel like all the songs are just kind of thrown in as singles and don't necessarily have a cohesive thread other than this theme of the lyrics to pull through all of them. Now, there are really good songs here. There's great melodies, some really good guitar riffs, and nothing about this album is particularly bad. I personally was just hoping for something somewhere that made me think, I don't quite know where they're going with this. And that's what I don't quite get about the Gold album, right? The meta awareness is obviously there. They know we're going to be talking about Weezer history. They know we're going to be comparing things to the Blue album, to the Green album, to the early stuff. They know we're going to talk about the formulas. But I'm not quite convinced that being self-aware of the formula is quite the same thing as breaking out of it. Maybe they don't want to. And they are a playful band, so maybe that is the joke. Maybe the joke is on me, and they figured that the most effective way to take control is to give us exactly what we expect, while making an album about whether or not they should make any changes or deviate. If so, that's pretty clever, I guess. I'm not really buying it though. And then there is the album length, which is a disappointment. It clocks in right at 33 minutes. And I'm sorry, I've said this before, I'll say it again, this unbelievable trend going on of albums being released and clocking in at under 40 minutes. This just has to end. And I know this is kind of on point for Weezer, right? Historically, a lot of their albums have only been, just over 30 minutes. But, when I think about that, it makes the fact that there's 20 albums a little less impressive. Just give me 5 more minutes. Give me one more weird song. Give me an instrumental. Give me something completely unnecessary. If you're going to make an album about control and self-awareness, then give me just one moment where you completely lose it. Instead, this album gets in, gives you the Weezer, and then gets out. Wheezing the juice, my friends, just wheezing the juice. So no, I don't think the Gold album is a bad album. It does a lot of things really well. I just don't think it's a reinvention either. It's a solid Weezer album that I think a lot of Weezer fans will enjoy. For me, it just sits at like a 6 out of 10. But 32 years later, I'm still listening. So points for that, right? I just want a little bit more risk. All right. I just would love to one day see an album where Weezer completely stops worrying about what everyone else thinks, just for 5 minutes or 30, or preferably, 45 minutes. But that is it for me. What about you? Have you listened to the Gold album yet? What are your thoughts? How do you think it ranks up with the other albums? Or what is your favorite Weezer album out of the discography? I'd have to say mine is probably OK Human. As always, thank you for watching. Thank you for joining. Please consider liking, subscribing, and until next time, keep on collecting.